Good afternoon. While we wait for the thing to light up, I would like to thank the invitation to participate in this international colloquium. I come from Uruguay, down in South America, and I thank you for being here and for letting me share with you some thoughts about management education. I would like to address 4 points. In first place, describe 3 limitations of business schools to respond to the challenge of today's world. Next, I will speak about the contribution of Catholic business schools. One purpose of this speech is to reinforce the case of how Catholic business school education is more comprehensive than traditional business school in producing self-aware and ethical informed graduates who is equipped to be a leader committed to the service of others, who are indeed the type of people we need in society, and I think at all levels of our organizations. Then I would like to mention some implications that this has for the business community. And finally, if we have time, present a partnership experience that we have in Uruguay of a business school that is conducted by ACDE in Uruguay, ACDE is UNIAPAC in Uruguay, and by the Catholic University. First of all, I think as most of you, that man is created by God and called to help in the construction of the common good. Most of us, and I think most of humankind, want to do good. We work with good intentions. And I think that in the last centuries, our companies, our business, our technology have really boosted the quality of life of the people around the world. In general, I think that people live longer, have more education, have more access to health. Many have more opportunities of development. But many times our good intentions have bad results. They generate unwanted consequences, consequences we never thought could occur. Pope Francis in Laudato Si warns us about this problem, and he says the most extraordinary scientific advances, the most amazing technical abilities, the most astonishing economic growth, unless they are accompanied by authentic social and moral progress, will definitively turn against men. And he continues, the fact is that contemporary man has not been trained to use power well, because our immense technological development has not been accompanied by the development in human responsibility, values, and conscience. And I think this is not only a problem of businessmen, this is a problem of business schools. As Angel Cabrera, his dean of the Thunderbird School of Management, once said, he said, we can look the other way, but come on, the CEOs of those companies, those are the people that we used to brag about. We cannot say, well, it wasn't our fault when there is such a systemic, widespread failure of leadership. And many critics has contend that business education is not guilty only by omission, it is guilty by commission. That is, the scandals and crises of today's business world are partly a reflection of what is not taught in business school, as well as what is taught. There is an increasing thought that business programs are limited to teaching business language, theory, and skills. And in fact, much of this not delivered very well. Graduates talk the talk and know how to do business things, but they lack ethical and emotional leadership intelligence to make purposeful decisions and effectively respond to an anticipated challenge in a moral and socially responsible manner. And in words of Professor Curran from Harvard University, too much of contemporary business education offers a narrow concept of the role of business in society. It is not holistic, nor does it take into account the competing claims that variety of constituents have on the firm. Consequently, the leadership training in business schools tend to be narrow, functional, and specialized. It doesn't produce a broad, integrative understanding of business. In this context, I would like to briefly mention 3 limitations of business schools to respond to the challenge of the world. Of course, there are many other limitations, but I think these are important and many times are not taken into account as they should. The first one is the academic excellence model that business schools have adopted. Second, the failure of business schools to question the dominant culture in business. And third, the problem with curriculum integration. Starting with academic excellence models, during the past several decades, many leading business schools have quietly adopted an inappropriate model of academic excellence. Instead of measuring themselves in terms of the competence of their graduates or how well their faculty understands important business performance, they measure themselves almost solely by the rigor of the scientific research. They have adopted a model of science that uses abstract financial and economical analysis and lots of statistics analysis. Of course, some of the research produced is excellent, but because so little of it is grounded in actual business practices, the focus of graduate business schools has become increasingly circumscribed and less relevant to practitioners. One of the origins of this shift were 2 reports about the state of business schools research issued by Ford and Carnegie Foundations in 1959. Both foundations recommended that business schools should focus more on scientific research, and they offered grant money towards achieving that end. And so top-tier universities began to change their focus to academic model. By the end of the 20th century, nearly all leading business schools switched their focus, and now the objective of most of them is to conduct scientific research. Today, virtually no top-ranked business schools will hire, let alone promote, a tenure-track professor whose primary qualifications is managing an assembly plant, no matter how distinguished his or her performance had been. Nor would they hire professors who write articles only for practitioners. By recruiting and promoting those who publish in discipline-based journals, business schools are creating faculties filled with individuals whose main professional aspiration is a career devoted to science. Today, it is possible to find tenured professors of management who have never set a foot inside a real business. We cannot imagine a professor of surgery or who has never seen a patient, or a piano teacher who doesn't play the instrument. And yet today, many business schools are packed with intelligent, highly skilled faculty with little or no managerial experience. As a result, they can't identify the most important problems facing executives, and they don't know how to analyze the indirect and long-term implications of complex business decisions. The problem here is not that business schools have embraced scientific rigor. That's good. But they have abandoned other forms of knowledge. In addition to this academic excellence model, many of the business schools measure their success in terms of the salary obtained by the graduating students. This is one of the key elements considered in many of the rankings of business schools. Of course, if you ask the deans, no dean will say this, but one of the primary elements stated when interviewing candidates for MBA programs is this, and when business schools publicize their success, they use this. Second place, I said, business schools have failed to challenge the dominant business culture. And the failure relates not only to the fact that traditional business schools have educated students without sufficient attention to ethics, but also to the way they have failed to challenge the dominant culture in marketplace. The dominant culture of business is driven by maximization of shareholders' profits, often to neglect of other principles, values, and ways to understand the bottom line of the firm. But Pope Francis states, every effort to protect and improve our world entails a profound change in lifestyles, models of production and consumption, and established structures of power which today govern the societies. For new models of progress to arise, there is a need to change models of global development. This will entail a responsible reflection on the meaning of the economy and its goals, with an eye to correcting its malfunctioning and misapplications. The third limitation I want to mention is the curriculum integration. Business education is devoted overwhelmingly to technical training. One professor, Thomas Lindsay, stated business students spend 95% of their time learning how to calculate with a view to maximizing wealth, and just 5% of their time is spent developing their moral capacities. This is ironic because even before Enron, studies has shown that executives who failed both financially as well as morally rarely do so from a lack of expertise. Rather, they fail because a lack of interpersonal skills and practical wisdom, what Aristotle called prudence. Aristotle taught that genuine leadership consisted in the ability to identify and serve common good. To do so requires much more than technical training. It requires an education in moral reasoning, which must include history, theology, philosophy, etc. The failure to attend ethics and the importance of other bottom line values, including the good to society and the sustainable use of resources, has inspired many schools to reorganize their curriculum and include courses that address ethical dimensions of management. But many of times, these efforts result in a kind of patchwork. There must be an integration across the curriculum. Ethics should not be a single, isolated course, but an integral part of all subjects. There are ethical concerns in finance, accounting, organizational behavior, management style, etc. Ethics, integral human development, sustainability should not be just another isolated specialty. We must integrate ethics issues into classes, not just have ethics classes. And in this context, I would like to mention what are three specific contributions of Catholic business schools and how they address the limitations that I just described. First of all, I must say that we are part of the business school world. So we face the same problems, the same limitations as other business schools, so we are not out of that. But I think that we have three distinctive elements that put the Catholic business schools in a very good position to contribute in the installation of a sustainable business culture. And they are, first of all, our way to define academic excellence and success, our focus on integral education, and third, the development of habits of discernment. And to illustrate our way to define academic excellence and success, I will use some phrases of the generals or CEOs of the Jesuits. First, Father Kolbenbach, former general of the Jesuits, used to say, the success of a school should be measured by what its students become after they have left it. Our role is to help these students in a more profound and personal way so that they become persons of human quality, committed citizens, and great professionals. And Father Nicolas, who's the actual general Jesuit, said in the commemoration of the 50th anniversary of ESADE here in Barcelona, we are not training the best in the world, but the best for the world. This means that the professional excellence is measured primarily by the parameter of greater service to the human family. As you can see, these definitions of the purpose and of the academic excellence has a great impact on the focus of the programs of the business schools and on the way we assess, we evaluate our teachers and our research. In reference to our focus on integral education, we pursue not only the formation of the intellect, but the formation of the self. While other approaches to education focus on intellectual formation or the development of vocational skills, ideally, a Catholic education engages the affective and the moral sensibilities of the heart as rigorously as it does the intellect. And this education is oriented towards a purpose beyond itself, for the service and transformation of the society. Paraphrasing General Nicolas again, we need to form leaders who are not only excellent economists or managers, but who also have vision in the long term of the development and a deep look of reality, which allows them to see the intimate connection which links the whole creation. Without rooted convictions, we stay in the surface of things, and without depth, we end up being incapable of seeing beyond the immediate interests which currently prevail in most economic groups. The end goal of business education in the Catholic tradition is not merely develop professional competence in order to get jobs. Rather, it is to develop a deeper self-knowledge of one's unique talent and how to use them in service of others. And the last characteristic of the Catholic business schools I would like to mention is the development of habits of discernment. The proper conduct of a business leader is informed by his ethical character and worldview. This is why it is important that we not only teach leaders the task and best practice of business, we must also help them to develop a moral compass that will enable them to find the right solution even when unknown territories. It is not enough to be a good person or to have good values to avoid undesirable consequences of our decisions. We need to develop the capacity of discernment. Just as we learn and practice tools of marketing and finance, we need to develop the ability to discern the impacts of our actions, the ability to assess conducts and make decisions based on ethical concerns and transcendent moral values. And as all of us know, habits are not formed only by chance or occasional happening. Rather, habits develop only by consistent and planned practice. So if we want to have leaders that discern their decisions, we must generate those habits. Showing some subtle but important difference as a practical illustration, let me present some comparative observations between traditional business schools and the ideal version of a Catholic school. I'm not going to read all the table, just two of them. The first one, In a traditional business school, we focus on teaching leadership skills to students so they know what to do in various business capacities as CEO, CFO, or senior manager. In a Catholic school, we equip students with critical thinking skills to discern on their own what needs to be done regardless the role in the organization. Leaders are not the people on the top, but are those persons who can influence and foster change. And the last one, in a traditional school, we prepare students to graduate with the skills needed to perform tasks in their chosen field. And in the Catholic school, we also encourage self-understanding, self-management, and a lifetime of evolution through discovery. I have been speaking about business schools. Let me comment some implications for the business community. I think most of you are from the business community, not from business schools. Management education is not just a task of business schools. And I say more. The education of business leaders, which has major impacts on the world, on the quality of life and on the environment, is very important to be left only in control of the academy. If the business community does not get involved, business schools alone are not going to change. We are in our comfort zone. We write papers for academics, and we are very comfortable there. So I think you have to engage. And I will mention 3 ways in which business community should engage. First one is sending the correct signals. The strongest potential force of change is the business community, as I mentioned. But unfortunately, most corporate employers have been sending mixed signals. They complain that business schools aren't producing the leaders they need. But then they hire MBAs with narrow specialties. Or they send their employees to do programs in those schools just because they are at the top of the rankings. What's more, business leaders have been supporting business schools that offer no alternatives to the limitations I just mentioned. This support, of course, is interpreted as a vote of confidence. After all, when donors give a large sum of money to put his name on a school building, one can't blame faculty members for assuming that the donor is not pleased with what they do inside. I think that business leaders should evaluate in a more comprehensive way the schools with whom they are going to work and those who they are going to support. Second, business community should get involved in the content and its integration. Make sure that the programs consider not only technical skills, that those technical skills will change many times in the professional life, but also more soft skills, and above all, the values that conduce to the common good and the ability to make decisions and act in correspondence with those values. And last but not least, redefining the business success. And this means to go against literature, against most of the business leaders that are presented as stars by the media or by the books, to develop new study cases and to present enterprises that are successfully working with focus on the common good. Business communities should help to present new models of business leadership to students, examples of leaders that are successful because they are really putting human dignity as center of their concerns. We must construct a common voice significant with a critical mass to challenge the perception conveyed by most business schools profit maximization as the sole aspiration of professional success. And finally, in 2 minutes, let me present a partnership experience that we have in Uruguay of a business school conducted by a Catholic university and ACDE. ACDE is UNIAPAC in Uruguay. In the late 70s, ACDE created ISEDE to develop executive education. The Catholic University of Uruguay was not born yet, and there was no offer of this kind of education in our country. And in the first years of this century, the business school of the Catholic University and ACDE started to work together in that institution. In those years, we realized that if programs of the business schools wanted to be relevant to the business community, they have to really engage business leaders in its design, development, and teaching. And ACDE realized that to deliver executive education of excellence, it should incorporate some of the rigor of the academy. So in 2007, we created a new institution, ISEDE Business Schools of ACDE and UCU, that is conducted by both entities. But I think the most important thing that we realized is that if we really wanted to change the way business was done in Uruguay, we should incorporate business ethics values in all our activities, in all our MBAs programs and in all our executive education. All our activities should have some reflection about how these values are involved in the theme of that activity. And to make this happen, our professors should be evaluated by the way they incorporate those themes in their courses. And in all executive activities, the participants should assess if this is happening. The only way to carry this on is if you engage the professors, and the only way to engage the professors if you evaluate or assess them with this, if you measure. And so, here you can see in this slide, this is an evaluation form of an executive education, I think last week. And you can see, we have a question. To what extent this activity has included business ethics values in its thematic? And this is an evaluation of the participants, and they don't only evaluate the activity, but they also evaluate the teacher, the professor. And we use that to measure them. And here you can see how we have been doing in the last few years with him. Now we have a problem, we are going down in 415. You see, I think he said we have a very interesting experience and quite unique of a partnership of a business association and a business school that are working to change the way business is done with a great focus on values and ethics. Well, finishing, I hope these reflections have been useful for you. I come from another reality, I come from a business school, I come from another continent. So many of your concerns may be different, and maybe some of the things I said here are meaningless for you, but nevertheless, I think some concepts may be useful. Well, thank you again, and thank you for your invitation.